Welcome. Today we're going to be doing a demonstration on how to create a customized home using basic shapes in Adobe Illustrator. For this demonstration, we're just going to keep it very simple into creating out a shed type shape, as you can use these tools and hopefully create out something a little bit more unique and comprehensive when it comes into building out porches or garages, other elements that are going to help really define what would be a dream home. But building out the shack element, we can see how basic shapes can create out something more like a standard home design. To begin with, we're going to think about our background. I'm going to first set up our ground and our sky. I can keep it to flat colors at the moment. I'm going to change out my fill color. And we can use a rectangle to draw out for our sky as well. If you want to get into customizing and making it more enhanced, we can use gradients to fill out the area. So if I don't want to have just a flat blue color, I can go over to my gradient tool in the right side navigation. I'm going to click and drag this color onto the gradient slider, eliminate out the black, and I can use the gradient tool to adjust and have the gradient travel so it is more of a blue subtle element in the background. Same thing with the background for the green. I'm going to eliminate out the black stroke so it's a more smooth design. Taking away the stroke and going over to my gradient panel on the right side, I'll click and drag this green onto the gradient bar. Eliminate out the blue. And I can double click on the white to change this out to a lighter green color. I can use the gradient on the left side navigation to adjust the direction that the gradient travels. So we now have a blue sky with a green grass. Next, we want to think about building out the actual shape of the home. Again, this is going to be just more of a shed, but you could always add in more pieces when it comes into building out something more comprehensive. I'm going to go over to the rectangle tool, click and drag to create out the main portion and body of the shed shape. I'm going to change out the color to be just more of a standard red color so it can pop out. For the demonstration, easy to identify, easy to see. I'm going to then go over to my polygon tool, and I'm going to look to draw out a triangular shape. When I click and drag, if you are seeing 6 sides of the object, we can use the arrow keys while clicking and dragging with the mouse to adjust down to 3 sides. To get a perfectly flat bottom, I'm going to hold down Shift to make sure that we can align the top portion of the rectangle with the bottom portion of the triangle. I'm going to click and drag this over to match up to the top left edge. And I do recommend that you have your smart guides on so it's easy to align and make sure that objects are going to align properly. I'm going to look to scale this out so it reaches out to the other edge. And even though that they do look like they are combined at the moment, because I do not have a fill on this, if you do have a fill on the object, this black line would be interrupting or interfering with your design. Just so we can see it a little bit better. If I want to combine these shapes, I want to select on both of them. I'm going to use the shape builder to click and drag through one object into the next, and now it becomes that one singular shape. Now that we have the main shape of the shed, then we're going to go over to our rectangle or our pen tool. With the pen tool, I can click a point, and I'm going to extend the line that's going to go further across the area, making sure that it reaches and stretches across the entire object. And I can hit escape to end the line. There's a couple of different ways of creating, say, siding for an object. If we want to do siding for this, we could use the blend tool if you feel more comfortable with that, or you could use the duplicating out an object. Eventually, we will turn these into individual lines. So what I'm going to look to do, just creating out a duplicate, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, click and drag downward. I'm going to give a little bit of space between the two lines, but I also want to make sure I'm holding Shift to make sure that they stay aligned. Once I am satisfied with the distance between the two lines, I'm going to let go with the mouse first. Then I can let go with Shift and Alt. Now that I have a duplicate, I can hit Command or Control D to create out more duplicates that are going to run down the entire object. It's okay if you have too many. We'll talk about how to cut these out momentarily. But what we do want to do is select out both or all of the lines. So I'm going to click and drag from an open space over top of all the edges of the left parts of the line. I'm going to hold down Shift to deselect out the grass and the sky. So I have all the lines selected. If I did want to customize this a little bit, I may consider changing this black stroke into more of a red color so it matches, but I'm going to darken this up so it coincides and connects better to the design. Once I do have that red tone, I'm going to click OK. And we're going to use the shape builder, but we need to select out the main shape of the home. So I'm going to hold down Shift and click on this triangular shed shape that we created out. Now I'm going to go over to my shape builder, hold down Alt so we get the minus symbol with our shape builder, and I'm going to click and drag down the lines outside of our house shape, and they'll eliminate out the excess so that they are not going to be extending outside of the object. Now when I click off of it, we can see that those lines are constrained inside of that shed. Now that we have the little details that create out what would be siding of the building, we're going to get into creating out the roof line. I'm going to go back over to my rectangle tool, click and drag to create out a rectangular shape. And we're going to look to rotate this so it matches up to the angle of our home. If you want to extend it out, make it bigger, it's okay. We can adjust it out as needed. I'm going to have a little extension over on the right and left side eventually. But with this rectangular shape, I'm going to change it out so it's a brown color. If you want to go black, you can go darker with it. Once we have that shape, I'm going to hit Command or Control C, Command or Control F, making a copy directly on top of it. Then we can go to reflect the object. I can go up to Object at the top navigation, Transform and Reflect. So it crosses over. We're seeing on the pop of the reflect panel that it's going to be mirroring to the left and right based on the vertical icon that we can see over on this side here. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to shift this over to the left side of our home. I'm going to select on both shapes and use the shape builder to combine the elements of the roof and then eliminate out the excess on the top. I can hold down Alt, cut those out, and now we're left with a roof line that is all one piece. With this roof line, I do want to create a little bit of separation from the main portion of the home and the roof. So I'm going to hit Command or Control C, Command or Control F. I'm going to change this out to white on the fill and eliminate out the stroke completely. I'm going to scale this down, grabbing the top middle and holding Shift. So it's a little bit tinier. And if I want to send it backward, I can hit Command or Control left bracket. So we just get a white separation for a roof line. Next, we want to think about adding in a window, or maybe you want to add in a door. We can think about those elements just to break it up and think about how this can be more enhanced. I'm going to start out with a door for our shape. We're going to click on the rectangle tool, and I can click and drag from the bottom of our shed. For the door, right now it is currently just a white color. We can put in any color you'd like for the door, but I can double click, change the color out. If you want to go black door, brown door, whatever it is, you just want to make sure that we're separating it from the rest of the design. Once I have the rectangle drawn out, I may want to consider putting a white frame outside of this door so it stands out from the rest of the house. So I'm going to hit Command or Control C, Command F, and I'm going to change this color out to white, eliminate out the black stroke. With this white, I'm going to expand the corner up a little bit on the top left and over on the right. And I'm going to place it behind my brown door so I can hit Command, Control, left bracket. So we're just getting a white frame outside of our brown door. You could always do it opposite, where you draw out the white first and then put the brown portion inside of the white frame. But we are getting good separation now from the siding of our door. For basics, we can just use a handle. I'm going to create out a circular shape that's going to represent our doorknob. And I can make this a gold color, or whatever color you want to make. If you want to think about details on the door, think about the little elements that are going to really help enhance it. I can go over to left side navigation, click on the rectangle tool. I'm going to click and drag to create out a rectangle, and this is going to be kind of a siding or detail that we can add in. I know the color is off right now, but I can use the eyedropper tool to match to the color of our door. Or if I want to darken it up so it's slightly different, I can have an element that breaks up on the design. Holding down Alt, I can click and drag to create out a duplicate. I can get into scaling this or modifying out the shape so it's a little bit more centered to the door, and I can hold down Alt to create out duplicates that will sit below as well. So I have 4 different shapes kind of sitting over top of the area. If I wanted to add in more detail, I could always look to create out duplicates of these. Another way of duplicating out, I can go up to Object, Path, and Offset Path. With Offset Path, it puts a frame outside or inside depending on the offset that you create. I'm going to do an offset inside of the objects with a -0 point, and then I can adjust the size as needed. I'll put it in a 0.8. Negative 0.08. If I hit preview, I can see what it looks like. If I do want to make adjustments, I can always make it smaller. Let's try 5. So it's a little bit tighter to the objects. So when I click OK, we get those shapes, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to match the lighter color. And now we get those darker brown frames around the outside. You can always use the strokes as well to create that same effect. But I want to think about other details that I could add in to enhance this overall look and feel. We will eventually add a window at the top of the door, but we're going to, or at the top of the house, but we're also going to add a window to the door. Over on the left side navigation, again, I'm going to click with the rectangle tool, click and drag to create out a rectangular shape. And just so it matches with the rest of the frame of what we have going on, I can use the eyedropper tool to match it to this brown color, darker brown color. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle inside, or I could go up to Object and Path and Offset Path again, creating that same frame, but this time I'm going to change this out to a light blue color to represent more of a glass look. To give this more a sense that this is a window, you may want to think about the little details like adding in wooden frame. I could use the rectangle tool to draw out a frame that separates the glass, so we're creating out window panes. And I can use the eyedropper tool to match the darker brown. Again, with the rectangle tool, break it up top and bottom as well. And if I need to make sure that things are aligned, I can select on both the shapes and use the Align panel to send those better proportionally. But you also may want to consider details that are going to give elements to understand that this is a window. If I wanted to create out a shine over top of the window. I'm going to go over to the left side navigation, and we're going to click over on the rectangle tool. I'm going to click and drag to create out two rectangles that are going to appear as a light blue or a white. If I want to do a thin one and a thicker one, I can hold down Alt, click and drag, so that we can modify and scale it down. But the reason why we're doing this is that I'm going to select on both of these, and I'm going to click on the direct selection tool, the white arrow. With the white arrow, if I zoom in closer so we can see this better, I'm going to click on the left anchor points. I can click on the top left, hold shift, click on the one on the bottom of that. Then I'm going to select on the bottom anchor points on the left side for the smaller, thinner shine. With these anchors selected, I'm going to click and drag one of them to create out a diagonal that's going to run across the glass. This just gives us a sense that there is a highlight or some type of visual that's creating interest on the design. But I can click off of them, and I'm going to move them upward just slightly so that it runs across at least a little portion of each of the panels. But I'm going to hit Command or Control left bracket to move them behind those window frames so that it's broken up a little bit. If I want to drop the opacity or lighten up the color, I could change this to light blue or go over to my transparency panel and drop the opacity so that I see the blue come through. So if I drop it down to 60%, I still get that little white shine, and it gives me the sense that we're working with glass. So now we have a door, we have a window inside that door. We're going to look to see how we can create out a customized window above our door. We're going to start out with the rectangle tool. And then we're going to go over to our ellipse tool to draw out a circle. With the ellipse tool, I'm going to move my cursor slightly up above the shape, click and drag, and I'm going to align it over on the left and right side. With this circle shape and this rectangular shape, I'm going to select on both and use the shape builder to combine them into one. So now we get this arch type of window, so it's not just a bland window. To modify the color, I can use the eyedropper and match it to the window that I've already created. Now, little details that I want to consider is possibly putting in, again, a frame that's going to help really make this stand out. So with this object selected, I can go up to Object, Path, Offset Path. And we'll keep it to the -5 so it's consistent. I'll click OK. And I'm going to change the interior, or we're going to select on the exterior of the window. And we're going to change this color out to white. That gives us the frame for the window. Now, if I want to break this up, I could use the rectangle tool to draw out some frames that break up the window. And the way to separate this from the other elements of the window when we get into the shine elements is just a matter of dropping the opacity later on. But if I want to create out a duplicate, just hold down Alt or Option, click and drag. Make a determination, try to find a balance that's going to help break up the windows. But again, I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw out a rectangle that extends down the middle. Once I have these objects, I can use the align panel just to make sure that they're align centered. Now, if I want to put in an idea of a shine, again, I could even just take the highlights that I've already created, use the selection tool, select on both the shines that are already created, hold down Alt to create out duplicates. I'm going to bring these above my window. I can hit Command Shift or Control Shift right bracket to bring them above. I'll scale these down so they fit a little bit more proportionally, so they can extend inside of my window area. Scale them as needed. If you want to add in another highlight, you could always make an adjustment. I can use the direct selection tool to modify out the shape. If I need to change that out, I can customize it to my preference. But if we zoom out, we get a nice, simple little shed with a nice window, door, and elements that make up the house. Other details that you can think about, whether it's putting in some type of pathway, I can use the pen tool to draw out a customized shape. And I want to think about perspective. I can draw from the interior, and we can see that it gets wider on the bottom portion. I can change this color out so it's more of a cement. If I want a gradient to it, I can go over the gradient panel, add this to the gradient. I'm going to darken up a color on the gradient panel, adding a little bit more black, so we're getting a shadow effect. And I can eliminate out the white. Use the gradient on the left side navigation to adjust and create out a fade on top of this path. Other details that you can consider using the shape builder. Once I draw out a number of circles, if I overlap a number of circles together, I can make it appear as if I'm drawing out a bush shape. Right now they do have the color of a cement, so I'm going to select out all those circles. With them, I can sample the green in the back, or I can adjust to a different color. But with those circles selected out, if I want to combine them into one single shape, I can click on the shape builder, hold down shift, and click and drag to combine them into one single shape. If I wanted to create out another bush, I can hold down Alt or draw out more circles and draw out. But we're just getting a sense of how we can use basic shapes to build out a design like this. Other elements that you can consider, maybe adding in a tree or adding clouds, a background. Just a matter of replicating, creating out shapes to build out an overall design. So if I wanted to have a little fireplace or have a chimney, just to give a sense of the design, you can move the object behind other shapes, Command Shift left bracket, or put in details that are going to help create out a more customized home. So think about the details that will make your home, but you can see that just using basic shapes, you can create out something very elegant, interesting looking, and is customized for you. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.